wellness and nutrition with hemp, everybody. And my name is Eva Silva. I'm going to keep my intro really brief because we've got an amazing panel that needs to talk and not a whole lot of time. So we're going to just move through this. First off, I'm a writer, producer. I have a startup CBD foods company as well. But so I've been in the industry for a while, and I'm really passionate about the health and wellness benefits. Personally, one of my favorite quotes has always been Hippocrates, let food be thy medicine and medicine be thy food. And, you know, it can be a fine line when you're talking about medicinal versus nutritional, but, you know, basically, if it nourishes you, it's good, and hemp certainly does. And when people ask me, I get asked all the time, well, do you think hemp would help with, I say yes. Well, what about yes? Yes, the answer is yes, Jess, you know. So that's why we're here. And my first guest, our first guest, Dr. Bob, we're going to have him go first because he has to move on. He's in demand. So, Dr. Bob, welcome. So tell us a little bit about you and your work, please.
Well, I'm an old hippie troublemaker. And I started smoking cannabis, using cannabis when I was 16. I started using cannabis when I was 16 and knew that it was good for me and continued to use it. And I have a variety of genetic issues, arthritic and skeletal nonsense that torments me. And, you know, I'm 68 years old. I've used cannabis for 52 years on a daily basis. And I'd be quite messed up if it wasn't for that use because of my genetic background. So I became very involved with it. And all my friends are felons, I'm proud to say, throughout my whole adult life. I was one for one day before they dropped the charges eventually. So it's been a long battle of insanity, but I'm a very conservative, hardcore scientist. That's what my life is about, learning and how I can improve my health and the health of my friends and family and community through the knowledge that I feel is useful. That, you know, I've done a lot of teaching at the universities. I was chairman of the biology department at UCCS here in Colorado Springs. And where I'm going with this is that what I've done is I've integrated a field of physics known as far from equilibrium thermodynamics. And the difference between that and the physics that everybody's taught is the physics that everybody's taught says that life is too improbable to exist. And that time goes backwards both ways. But, you know, look at around you. When did you ever drive your car and your gas tank filled up? Or, you know, are you getting younger? You know, so everywhere we educate our students with a philosophy and a mindset that reflects what I call primitive man, backward-looking people, the blips, the cannabinoid deficient people who run the world with aggression and anger and the need to control because they can't adapt to change because newness stresses them because they don't make enough pot. So, with that as a viewpoint, that's my world. You know, I use about a quarter of a gram a day of high-quality oil, morning and night and in between. And, you know, you can function quite well. It requires a different way of thinking and being. And you adapt to that. But nutrition is what this is about, and what I want to explain to you is that the physics that I deal with is about flow, and how flow-dependent structures are created. And what I mean by a flow-dependent structure is the whirlpool in your drain, a tornado, the weather patterns, our financial patterns, the ups and downs of booms and busts, and you and everything that's alive is a flow-dependent structure that evolved from before there was life because there's a natural ability of flowing energy to organize matter. And the matter that you're consuming is your food. So we have two major body systems that regulate what comes into us. View us as a collection of, you know, each individual as a collection of molecules. And furthermore, don't view yourself as an individual. View yourself as a quantized collection of chemicals, part of the chemistry of humanity. And that's the truth as to what you are. We have the illusion of independence, but flow-dependent structures only survive by inputs and outputs. Try not eating, try not shitting, you know? You're not going to be alive very long. So we are flow-dependent structures at that level, on that macroscopic level, but that's what's happening in our cellular level and on our subcellular level. Everything within you is organized and flowing. The term chaos in science is not disorganization. It's a level of organization that's so high that it looks random. But there are ways to distinguish it. And what goes on in us is the fact that we keep taking in energy so that we can basically make ourselves more complicated and move ourselves further from equilibrium. And if you eat right and exercise right, then you're minimizing the descent back to the phase change, the far from equilibrium phase change we call death. All right? So we'd like to avoid, that downward decline, and your diet and your nutrition is how you do it. And one of the big fallacies that I believe is responsible for a significant amount of healthcare problems today and death is the fact that the whole craze of fat-free diets. And the reason I say that is because as energy organizes matter, it always creates a balance of opposing forces. And one of the principal realities that is not widely known, and certainly not in the extreme sense that I'm going to explain it, we all know about free radicals. We all hear about free radicals and antioxidants and blah, 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 right? Well, free radicals damage us. They cause basically a deterioration of our organization because they react with everything. But as they react, they're damaging things. And our organization has evolved a level of complexity that other aspects of ourselves can look and say, oh, look, there's a damaged molecule of fat of a certain type, and it's binding to this particular me, whatever it is, whatever component, and that is going to then influence something else that's going to change the patterns of the biochemical flow. And the balancing act that's always trying to be maintained is that we don't make too many free radicals. But what I'm trying to tell you now is not only do they hurt us, but we would not be here without them. Because they are the signals that tell everything else that whatever is going on is either good or bad in terms of needing to be changed. And there are countless levels throughout our organization, subcellular on up, that reflect the ability of how we need to adjust to making these free radicals. And one of the big balancing acts that occurs is we burn sugars, and when we burn sugar, you make energy efficiently. And efficient energy production is necessary for us to transcend from invertebrates to vertebrates. And what evolution continuously selects for is adaptability. And with the emergence of the vertebrates, we had the cannabinoid receptors appear, the CB1 receptor specifically, neurologically. And what that did is it allowed the brains to develop more complexity without generating too much heat, and too many free radicals, which would have killed it and prevented the higher level of organization. So our cannabinoid system is fundamental. It regulates everything in your body from conception until death. And these morons that run the world have chosen the most absurd thing of everything they could pick on to make illegal. It is proof. The illegality of cannabis is proof that we have serious governmental illness. So anyway, back to nutrition. The sugar, if you burn too much sugar, you can make efficient energy. You can have a complicated brain. Your brain is 5% of your body weight, 20% of your heat. You're always giving off heat. And you have to. So you can't choose safer, less efficient ways of making energy. The thermostat that balances fat burning with sugar burning, because fat burning uses different pathways, and it doesn't make free radicals the same way or as many of them through the mitochondria and electron transport system, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, we need to burn fat. We need to consume fat. Essential fatty acids, omega-3s, etc. Every doctor in this country will tell you, omega-3s are good for your heart, they're good for your brain, they're good for your depression, they're good for your pain, blah, blah. Why are they good for you? Your body makes pot out of it. That's why they're good for you. Your endocannabinoids are all made out of lipid molecules, a special kind, and they're made on demand. What determines the demand? The free radical damage. Says you got to change things. So if you take things that promote fat burning, then you can control a lot of the pathways that are imbalanced by too much sugar burning. It's known just epidemiologically, cannabis users have thinner waists and have lower levels of diabetes despite the munchies. Why is that? Not because of the CB1 receptor, it's because of the CB2 receptor. The CB2 receptor turns on fat burning. All right?
That's
So you use CB2 in combination with nutrients like vitamin D, polyunsaturated fatty acids, resveratrol, a number of other things turn on fat burning, and you could shift your inflammatory levels totally away. And that's what I have to do in order, because of my thing. So I'll leave it at that. And
thank you so much,
you
Dr.
eat.
Bob. Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
One other thing.
Yes.
This is such an artificial nonsense to call a food a drug or not. You know, if something is good for you, it's a food.
Right.
And if you take more cannabis, you live longer. If you don't have enough, you hurt and die younger. It's an essential nutrient. And that's what everybody has to know. It's an essential nutrient for modern man. So we have an obligation to change the world.
An essential nutrient for modern man. It's a T-shirt. Someone make that. Thank you. All right. And next up, let's have Ari. Ari is of Evo Hemp, company he founded right out of college. Amazing.
Hi, my name is Ari. I founded Evo Hemp with my college roommate. We're from the University of Denver. We basically got started in the hemp business because of nutrition. So my mom, she's a nurse and a nutritionist, very, ahead of the curve as far as alternative sources of protein. So I got to talking with her about different hemp, products. She mentioned hemp seeds as a food source, and I didn't really know anything about hemp seeds at the time. I didn't know people actually even ate them. So I went home. I was kind of fascinated by it. We had been talking about a ton of different superfoods, and everyone's so very well aware of, what blueberries do for you and why you should eat your broccoli, but no one really tells you why you should eat your hemp seeds. So I Googled it, and within, the first half hour, I was just blown away by the nutritional profile of hemp. I quickly realized that hemp is the most nutritionally complete food source on the planet. There's pretty much nothing else out there that has such a rounded profile of proteins, omega fats, minerals. It's one of the few foods on the planet you can actually survive off of just eating one single food source. I don't know how well you would enjoy your life, but you could, drink water, eat hemp seeds, and, live a healthy life. So what got me really interested in the hemp was, two particular things of the nutritional aspect of it. The protein would be the first one. People always say, what should I do with hemp? Like, I'm like, anything that you need protein in, use it as your alternative source. So when I started the company, I was vegan and gluten-free at the time, and just found myself eating way too many soybeans. Soy is in every product that we eat. You go in any type of restaurant you go to, if you need a vegan meal, you got your soy or your kale. And so I quickly came to realize that if I just take 2 scoops of hemp seeds, I've got a solid 10 to 20 grams of protein, and it's a complete protein. So you have all your essential amino acids in there. One of the nicest things about that protein source is it's the highest plant source of a globulin edestin, and that's a type of amino acid that is the building block for your immune system. Hemp has been used for thousands of years, but a very interesting story was in the 1950s in Russia. They used it to treat kids with tuberculosis. So really, it's great for any type of immune deficiency diseases because it provides those antibodies that you need to help fight off those diseases. Really incredible source of omega fats as well. So our brains are made up of mostly fats. And, it's a close subject for me because my grandmother, she had, Alzheimer's and dementia. So I saw what, the lack of these quality fats can do on the body and, the quality of life. So the great thing about the omega-3s and hemp in particular is it falls into what the World Health Organization says is a perfect ratio. It's either a 4-to-1 to a 3-to-1 ratio of omega-6 to omega-3s. The problem with a lot of the foods that we eat that contain these omega-3s, they have too much omega-6. So with like flax seeds, for example, you'll have way too much omega-6, and it doesn't allow your body to absorb and break down and make those omega-3s usable. So it's very vital, just like what's in, fish oil. You got to get your balance, though, of your, DHA and your EPA omega fats. So it's always good to try to find a marine source to go along with your hemp seeds, like a blue-green algae or some type of fish oil. And hemp overall in general just has, this incredible profile of minerals. It has very, certain minerals that are really hard to get. Like magnesium is a tough one to find a lot. And just the fiber content is great. I mean, we all know why you should eat fiber. They add it to a lot of foods. But just in general, you know, hemp seed is a great way to just start. It's kind of a keystone change into your diet. So say you want to start eating healthier, but you don't really know, you know, which avenue to go to. So, you know, pick up some hemp seeds, start incorporating it into your meal. Maybe instead of, you know, having chicken with your, you know, rice or salad, incorporate some hemp seeds into it. People always ask me, like, what do you do with hemp? And you can pretty much do anything with it. You know, I put it in my cereals. I put it in my yogurts, pastas, pizzas. I mean, I haven't found a food where I didn't think that hemp could go into it. So, yeah, appreciate everybody coming out here. And
real quick,
yeah,
probably a lot of people know, but where, if someone wants to try your foods, where do we go?
So most of the natural product stores, the Whole Foods Market, Sprouts, Natural Grocers. You can check out evohemp.com. We have a little store locator, and you can pretty much find a location near you.
Awesome. Thanks, Ari.
Thank you.
Yeah, they are delicious, yes. So next up is Anndrea, Hermann, and thank you so much. Your resume is really impressive, so I'm gonna let you summarize and take it from here.
Okay, I'll stand also. Hello, everybody, and welcome. I want to thank even the team, all the team here. Yeah, my name's Anndrea Hermann. My background is diverse, I must say that. My bachelor's is in hemp economics. I was fortunate enough when I was attending university at the Missouri Southern State University in my hometown of Joplin, Missouri, that I had about 2 years left, and my professor said, you got to declare a major already. And I said, well, nothing here really interests me. And he says, obviously, because you're floating around in every department you possibly can. And he said, well, I want to know what pisses you off. That's how he put it to me. And I said, well, it's this industrial hemp thing. And he says, well, go make it happen. So I went down that day. I prepared a couple of emails, and I was fortunate enough that Sue Schlingerman up at the Parkland Industrial Hemp Growers office in Dauphin, Manitoba, she said that night while she was meditating, a couple of things came to her. One was banjo music, and one was another sense of something. She got to the office the next morning, and my email was sitting in her inbox. By the time I got to school at about 9 o'clock in the morning, she had already emailed me saying, we could facilitate an internship for you this summer. Changed my life overnight. I spoke not a word about the email to anybody, and by the end of the day, I was coming to Canada, and it changed my life. I went on to do my master's in hemp fiber agronomy at the University of Manitoba. So talking about nutrition, well, not only nutrition for our bodies, but nutrition for the soil. So that's one thing, talking about what industrial hemp provides nutrition back to the soil from the leaf matter falling on the ground, in addition to the extensive root system. So we're not only talking about how do we power our bodies, but how do we power the soils that are going to create the foods that are going to power our bodies. So it's very key and important. Certain things that we can do in the agricultural landscape is look at different types of plow down rotations that we can do to feed the soil the nutrients it needs to create a crop that's going to be able to sustain us. Because if the crop we're growing is not growing well, how can the food that's coming off that crop provide the nutrients that we need also? Is the plant starving for the nutrients it needs? And is that going to come out in the product itself in the long run? So good agronomy practices will aid in the health and nutrition of our body. So we've talked about, sort of the endocannabinoid systems, putting it in food. Well, what about on our body also? So talk about hemp seed oil. What do I do with hemp seed oil? That's lots of people ask me that. Well, okay, if you're a lady who wears makeup, it's a great eye makeup remover. Who knew, right? Do you want to put baby oil on your eyes into something that's going to go right into your eyeballs? Please try hemp seed oil. You'll be really surprised, you ladies that wear makeup, how well it does with removing makeup. Also adding those same essential fatty acids that are good on the inside are also good on the outside. So that's what I always say. I'm kind of like the big fat Greek wedding of the Windex world. Like, put some hemp seed oil on it, especially if you're working in construction. I also work in the hemp building sector, which we'll have a panel coming up, talking about working with caustic things that have really high pHs on our skin. So often I work a lot with stucco and render guys, and their hands are always beat up from the burning of the lime. Put some hemp seed oil on your hands prior to working with these types of ingredients. So this is another way of aiding the health of our bodies. In addition, in the health of our animals. So talk about the difference of the omega profiles that are going on in the research trials right now at the University of Manitoba getting hemp registered as a chicken feed. We see all of the omega eggs that are on the market right now, and those are all in the flax sector. Flax has had a lot of money come in over the years to push us towards getting things like grass, which is generally recognized as safe. And this is why all of a sudden in the last little bit, we've had a huge influx of flax showing up in all kinds of products on the market. And that's all backed by research that's been going on. And part of that is these initial animal feeding trials that we need to do to be able to push the efficacy of these food products in our human consumption. And you'd be surprised about how easy it is to get something registered for us to eat, but to feed it to an animal that we're going to eat, it is a long journey. So we're now about 7 years into the process of this chicken feeding trial. We know that Hemp Canada has supplied a lot of material to push that project further and further, so we're getting so close. But one of the positive things that have come out of that, which we often think we want to see like this mass difference, like hemp is so much better than flax, is when we start talking about feed rations, is what we really need those results to show is that they're relatively similar to each other. Because one is already approved, if we can show that, hey, feeding it flax, feeding it hemp, they kind of give you the same results in the end, that makes it easier to get the hemp registered. Because if all of a sudden it's like a huge over the spectrum of what the flax does in this case, it starts to raise more questions. Well, why is that? Now we need more testing to show us why it's so much better in the eggs. But they've done sensory profiles on these eggs and all that. So it's like, does the egg smell different? Does the yolk smell different? Does it taste different? So we're talking about the science of our food. It's not just about the science of what's going in and how it interacts in our body, but it's also how it interacts in the animals that are providing the food for us. In addition to that, you'll see some very interesting work going on in Belgium when it surrounds, hemp is a silage crop. And it's a lot about the fermentation and the ensilage that's happening. So it's another way of focusing on how do we make the animals that we're potentially eating or the milk that we're getting off these animals healthier themselves. I don't know if you know or not, any of you cattlemen out there, but a cow will get something called a prolapse, and that's when they push out their uterus. And you got to sugar that thing and push it back in. But the cows that are now on the silage are seeing a decrease in the uterine prolapses. Wow. And for a cattleman, that is huge. Because as soon as you've got a cow that has a prolapse, that cow's pretty much done. So it takes it out of the market. So my name's Anndrea, and that's a little bit about the nutrition in the soil, in our bodies, and the animals that we potentially are going to eat.
Wonderful. Thank you, Anndrea. It is the whole picture for sure. All right, and now we've got Shaun Crew of Hemp Oil Canada. Okay. Shaun, thank you.
Hello, everyone. How are you? Boy, we've covered omegas, free radicals, chickens. What are we going to talk to you about? Okay, let's talk about food safety. I love it. All right, because food safety is part of the nutritional curve here. I'll give you a little background on myself. I have a PhD that promote hemp daily, but nothing else. I started Hemp Oil Canada in 1998, 1 month before our government re-legalized the cultivation. It was, a very, there was a nothing industry at that time. There was zero. We had to create products that we didn't have processes for, and then sell it into new markets from there. So when I started out, we were very small. We had to, learn how to, crush hemp seeds, how to hull hemp seeds, how to make protein powder, packaging, regulations, shipping into the U.S. It was a lot of fun back in the early days, wasn't it? Yeah. So since then now, we are 18 years into this, and I guess probably 5-6 years ago, it became really important to start looking at food, not only the nutritional aspect of the food, we've learned about that a bit here today, but to prepare it properly, to prepare it in a food-safe manner. So, interestingly enough, I had to go out and hire a bunch of scholars that had that knowledge and information. Give me a little sip. So we went out and we've gotten 5-6 food nutritionists now on staff. Every seed that comes in our door is food tested 8 times, I think, before it goes back out the door. So, and we're talking about yeast molds, salmonella, E. coli. Remember, this is food that's coming off the prairies. There's a lot of organic production, so you've got a lot of manure. Sorry, we're using a lot of compost manure. So what happens is that gets picked up with the combine, goes through augers into trucks, into your bins, and so food safety became really important. Being able to identify those areas, determining what we needed to do under it's a HACCP program basically that we run, and make sure that everything is properly cleaned, sterilized, sanitized, and then when it's going out the door, we know it's food safe. We got to prepare a certificate of analysis for everything that we produce, and again, we have a staff that takes care of doing all that. Is there any questions you want to ask about anything that we can address other than?
Well, I was just going to say that's a really good. I'm glad that you brought that up as far as the food safety and the regulation of that, because I've had people ask me like, well, how do we know? Is it regulated like everything? Well, yes, it is.
Yeah, totally.
It's a mainstream industry, and it's regulated as such.
Right.
And I think that's very important. So.
Yeah. No. And when you start going out and you want to deal with Kraft or Nabisco or Kellogg's, these companies won't even talk to you unless you've got some level of food safety. Our facility, we're GFSI, which is the Global Food Safety Initiative. We are currently standardized under what's called the FSSC 22000 program. We're moving to a higher level called BRC, and these are all just standards that are required, in terms of food safety and how you're going to, handle the food products that go in and out of your facility. Everybody's in smocks, in hairnets, in beard nets, gloves. You're sanitizing your feet when you're walking into the facility. You're taking all those garments off when you're leaving the facility. And so, all these steps have to be employed. And we've determined it's costing about 25 cents per pound of our production in order to implement a food safety program and be able to ensure that the products, again, going out the door are food safe. I think the hemp industry has been fortunate in the sense that over, the 18 years I've been in it, I don't know of any illness that's been caused by any of the products that have gone out, but of our facility. Now, others I can't obviously speak for, but hemp is naturally it's allergen free and gluten free. But in the process of the farming, in that production, and then bringing it into our facility and processing it into a number of food products, there's ample opportunity for pathogens and bacteria to enter the stream. So I guess that's a little bit about what I wanted to talk about. It's just the food safety aspect, because it's so important that we don't want to make anyone sick, and so you've got to make sure that if you're dealing with a hemp food company, make sure that their products have been tested, because if you don't know whether they're safe to be eating. And obviously, we're pushing and promoting a health food, and it's equally important that food is safe. So
absolutely, thank
All
you,
right. You're
thank
welcome.
you very much. So next up, we have John Long of the Fat Pig Society Cooperative. The name alone is interesting. So, and you have an amazing background. So please share. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. The Fat Pig Society. We have a booth out there. I can tell you more about that. We're basically an organic farm co-op that grows hemp here in Fort Collins. We are recruiting farmers to join that would basically grow the plants. We handle everything else from the R&D, genetics, research on the front end to the processing, packaging, marketing, and distribution on the tail end. I'm not here to talk about our farm co-op, but I am a big supporter of hemp and always have been. I'm here to talk about my current health situation in the past 18 months since I was diagnosed with colon cancer. It was diagnosed as stage 4 at the time. They told me I had a year or 2 to live, and they do all the scare tactics that they usually do, and they want to push chemo and radiation, and it's difficult for sure. I don't have a family history with those kinds. My mom did die of a brain tumor about 20 years ago. That's when I started doing my research on alternative treatments. We tried to convince her to, take. Back then, there wasn't a cannabis movement in the U.S. and there was no legality to it. So we looked at shark cartilage and all these other alternative treatments that probably were limited in effectiveness, and she wasn't really interested in being a guinea pig to that. So she did chemo and radiation and died within 3 months. It was basically the beginning of the end for her. I got involved with the hemp co-op about 3 years ago because I believe in everything hemp stands for, and in terms of food and fiber and fuel. I'm a biodiesel guy, so that was a big interest to me back in the day. But really, the idea never really took hold until I became diagnosed. I was already involved in the co-op, but then I became a patient as well. And I was in a good situation to have availability of high quality organic hemp and high quality Rick Simpson oil, high THC doses. And I was starting to do both. About a gram a day was my goal. And if anyone's tried to do Rick Simpson oil, it's difficult to tolerate. You can ask my wife, but I couldn't tell you because I don't remember. I got up to about a quarter of a gram a day, and I, orally taking little dips and, out of a syringe, and it was just so difficult to tolerate and to get any work done, to function. It was great if you wanted to couch surf and eat Doritos, but that gets old pretty quick. So I cleared my head, I stopped taking it, and I did research on suppositories, and that was really my turning point. I just finished chemotherapy for my second treatment. I was convinced to go the chemo route. They use all the scare tactics they can, and a lot of times it works. It's also covered by insurance where none of these other treatments are. So all these factors played a role, but hemp and cannabis, I feel, saved my life. It allowed me to get through chemo with very little side effects. I was seeing other people in the infusion center every week that didn't look like me. They were very sick. And 60% of chemo drugs are cancer-causing agents, known cancer-causing agents. So go figure. But I started taking the suppositories about 4 months ago, and I was about 50 pounds lighter. I immediately started gaining weight, had the constant munchies. I was able to go from a quarter of a gram to a full gram of THC a day, maybe even a gram and a half. That's the magic number that you hear when you see the testimonials on YouTube or wherever, and the science really isn't there, and frankly, I don't care. I believe testimonials when you see hundreds of them. Yeah, that's what it's about, and it's worked for so many people. So I started down that path. I had no more nausea, no more vomiting. I started eating well. I gained my weight back. I'm back to normal weight now. And I'll never do chemo again. I'm convinced of that. And I will continue to do cannabis and hemp. So,
and how were you putting hemp in your diet in addition to the suppositories?
I've been doing some seeds and a lot of our CBD oil, which is infused in coconut oil. So that's a real easy product to incorporate in all your cooking. You can replace the coconut oil 1-to-1 with any other oil or butter in a recipe, baking, cooking, stir fries, mix it in your coffee. So there's a lot of ways that I've been incorporating it, both edible form, topically. The coconut oil is great to put all over you, especially where my tumors exist, which is my abdominal area. And I literally feel them shrinking,
Wow.
when I was going through chemo, and I'm like, what's working? Is it chemo? Is it this? Is it that? And I did a test, and they actually determined that the chemo wasn't supposed to really be working for me. So that's enough evidence for me that the cannabis worked, not to mention all the good it did with mitigating those side effects from chemo. So yeah, I don't know if we have time for questions, but I'm happy to talk afterwards. I know we're on a tight schedule, but I can't say enough how lucky I feel to be in a place like Colorado where I have access to this medicine, in a place in time and of history where it's now legal. You know, it was an unfortunate thing that happened, but I feel really lucky that it happened to me now and here in Colorado. And it's, you know, been able to inspire others around the country. And now they're all calling to try to get these medicines. And I really hope that we can expand a federal legality for this. And it's on the way. It's happening. It's just happening slowly.
Absolutely. And go ahead. We have maybe time for we're not really supposed to do questions, but yeah. Quick time. Well,
stages are a little funny. Stage 4 simply means that it's moved from its original location, and I had a tumor in my large intestine, and it had moved to my abdominal area, the peritoneum, which is the covering. So I was lucky that it didn't spread to my lungs, liver, brain, blood. You know, there's a lot worse stage 4 cases. So stage 4 sounded scary, but in actuality, you know, I woke up from my colonoscopy because my only symptom was slight constipation. And, you know, I've otherwise been healthy, active, and no symptoms at all. And when I got out of that colonoscopy, I went straight to the hospital, did not pass go, surgery tomorrow morning.
Wow.
So I had that removed, and the chemo was basically to tackle the rest that was remaining, which may be 10% left. And it's gone. So 2 days ago, I got my bill of health, full remission for now, but I'm going to continue to do my thing.
And thank you, everybody. If anyone, you know, it's an amazing story, and thank you so much for sharing that. If anyone wants more information about, you know, similar stories of healing, they're out there. Just, you know, you might already know the websites, but like Illegally Healed, cannaeffect.org. There's a ton of them out there, and the stories are just, I mean, you know, any illness you can think of, there's a story out there of people healing with hemp and cannabis in general, whether it's hemp or marijuana. So anyway, thank you, everybody, and yeah, get that hemp in your diet, on your skin, in your body, and thank you so much, all of our panelists. Everybody have a great time today. Thank you.